To Italy now, where Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is faced with two challenges: stopping illegal immigration and ensuring a steady supply of energy. And she has zeroed in on one candidate that can potentially solve both: Africa. Prime Minister Meloni wants to work with African nations. She's hosting a summit in Rome, an Italy-Africa summit, to get them on board. She insists that her approach is quote-unquote non-predatory and that it will be a win-win for both sides. But when it comes to Europe and their fraught history, Africa would do well to be wary. Our next report explains.
Leaders from about 25 African nations descended upon Rome today. There were officials from the United Nations and European Union as well, as were representatives from the World Bank. All these delegates went to Italy's historic Senate building to discuss an ambitious new plan, a scheme Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has dubbed the Mattei Plan. Named after Enrico Mattei, the founder of Italy's state-owned energy company, Eni.
Our future inevitably depends on the future of the African continent. That's why we have decided to launch an ambitious program of interventions that is capable of helping the continent grow and prosper, starting from its immense resources. All this is the backbone of the Italian strategic project that we call the Mattei Plan for Africa.
Italy is planning to invest in Africa, starting with North Africa and what she called the Sub-Saharan Quadrant. What is she planning to invest in? The name of the plan should give you a hint.
We have always been convinced that Italy has all it takes to become the natural energy supply hub for the whole of Europe.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 exposed a European weakness: its dependence on Russian oil and gas. Most European countries struggled to end this dependence when the war began. Rising energy costs led to a cost of living crisis and a scramble for alternate energy sources. But that episode seems to have given Meloni an idea: to turn to Africa to secure Europe's energy supplies. Meloni hasn't specified what type of energy, but it's known that fossil fuels are readily found in Africa. So it's ironic where her Mattei Plan's funding is coming from. About $3.3 billion will be allocated by the Italian Climate Fund, out of a total of around $6 billion allocated under the Mattei Plan. All of this money isn't just for energy projects. Some will apparently be earmarked for education, training, health, agriculture and water as well. But these funds come at a price. Meloni became Prime Minister by promising to reduce illegal migration. She plans to use her new Mattei Plan to augment its push.
Human traffickers will never be defeated if the causes that push a person to leave his home are not addressed at the source. This is exactly what we intend to do, from one side by declaring war to the smugglers of the third millennium, and on the other by working to offer African people an alternative of opportunities, work, training and legal migration paths.
Italy already trains the Coast Guard in Tunisia and Libya. They are trained to stop migrants from crossing the Mediterranean in boats. Meloni wants to expand her African anti-migration tactics. She reportedly wants to sign readmittance deals with origin countries, so she's able to send illegal migrants back to their home nations. The energy investments seem to be an incentive for the countries of origin of the migrants. This is the crux of Meloni's Mattei Plan. She calls it non-predatory, non-paternalistic, but also not charitable. It's a business deal which helps her deal with both illegal migration and energy insecurity. But is her offer good enough? Will the African nations be willing to accept her relatively small investment? After all, the EU has already promised a much larger investment. The EU unveiled a $160 billion package in 2022. So Meloni's $6 billion seems quite underwhelming. The Italy-Africa summit concludes tomorrow. We'll see how many nations Meloni can win over by then.